welcome to the New Breed podcast. My name is Fiona Kemijisha, and my co-host, Mr. Robert Kapshenga, will be joining us in just a moment. But welcome once again to this space that we have created every single Monday, tough conversations with some of the leaders that are arising. Some have already been in this political space, but the new breed, the new generation, just to get to know them, understand what do they care about? What issues do they esteem most? What do they
You,
understand about the
you
communities they're
young
going to
people want
serve?
you young people want to unseat us old guys. We're not going anywhere.
And now see, and now see. Welcome, Mr. Robert Kapshenga, to the New Breed Podcasts.
Oh yeah, am I? Oh, okay, we're on air now. Oh, okay, sorry, I forgot.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, and I'm Robert Kamshinga. This is the New Breed podcast, where we bring you the new Ugandan leaders unfiltered. No, the young Ugandan leaders unfiltered. This should never be seen by the public. They'll finish me. They will know I'm not a Gen Z or a millennial. Anyway, but Fiona, as always, it's good to have the young Ugandan political leaders that are shaping the Uganda of tomorrow. Take it away, Fiona.
Indeed. Now, for our viewers, some of you maybe are here for the first time. You can catch us on a number of platforms. We are on YouTube, New Breed Podcast UG. You can also catch us over on Robert's X. So right now we are actually streaming on X Spaces at the exact same time. That's Arkav Shenga. Also on TikTok at Arkav Shenga, as well as Instagram, if that's preferable for you, at Fiona Kemi _ Please do follow, subscribe. It helps the channels grow. It helps us reach more people. It's also free. So, you can click that button. Over to you, Robert.
Okay. David Lewis Rubongoya. We've posted everyone's profile and their photos, so you know all about them. So between you and Jacob Eyeru, I am going to ask you exactly the same question. So Rubongoya, because you're the one we can see face to face, you go first. And the question is very simple. What is it that motivates you, that has driven you to go into public politics and to seek public office? What is this thing that for you as David is so personal that you feel it is driving you to go and contest for public office? What is this that's pushing you? What's the passion?
Yeah, thank you very much, Robert and Fiona. Allow me to call you by your first names.
Oh yeah, so, perfectly fine. As long as you don't call me Papa, that thing just disturbs my head.
Oh yes, yeah. So really, for me, it's the passion to see a better country, to see a better governed country. I just talk about it in the context of running for office now, but I'm public spirited, and that's why I do what I do as a Secretary General of the National Unity Platform. I'm public spirited. I believe that Uganda deserves better. Our societies deserve better. When I see what has happened to the institutions in this country, you just want to cry. When you see what's happening with our parliament, when you see what's happening in the judiciary, I'm a lawyer, so you can understand my pain in that regard. When I see what is happening, of course, with the executive, where all these problems begin, you see that there's a lot of breakdown within our society. So, from way back, I felt that I had this passion to serve the public, to contribute, to make a contribution. I see leadership as a service, as a calling, as a mission to, make a contribution, change the lives of the people, touch people. And so that's why I'm running to try and extend what I'm doing currently to even the constituency where I live, where I've, been for quite some time. That's Kampala Central Division, to try and contribute. I mean, every time I move around the constituency, you see, first of all, a lot of poverty. You see a lot of injustices that happen to our people, evictions, illegal evictions. Then you look at the taxes which are imposed on these traders and all that. And Kampala Central being really the center of the country, it represents the decay, the breakdown of institutions that is there. So this is why I come in to say, maybe let me make a contribution even in this regard. So yes, I find myself, or I want to define myself as someone who is public spirited. I've always wanted to be in leadership, from a very young age. I've been, in school, prefect, head prefect in A level. Going to Makerere, I became president of Makerere Law Society, then guild speaker at the university. I co-founded an organization to bring together students leaders from the Great Lakes region. So I've always been public spirited, trying to make a contribution towards making lives better for people, having conversations that matter. So yeah, that's what I would say in regard to that question.
Let me just have a quick follow-up with you. What does serving the public mean? How do you understand it? What does it, if you could just help us understand, because young people who are listening to you now and may even be looking up to you, they say, okay, help us understand. What does it mean to serve the public? Do you come down and, work with them in the trenches, or how do you make that difference in their lives, especially if you become a member of parliament?
So, of course, it involves many things. What I can say is making or trying to contribute towards making the lives of the people better. It could be through legislation, making sure that the laws that are passed in parliament are responsive to the needs of the common people. It could be through going down to these people, the communities, engaging with the people, trying to contribute. At some point I was saying that right now in Uganda, we have an absent government. That's why you see leaders step in, sometimes provide services which should be ordinarily provided by the government. Then you find members of parliament having to lobby, get health services close to the people, organize health camps and all that. Of course, as NEP, we hope that we can change government and have a government that actually will truly serve the people and prioritize healthcare, education, infrastructure, and all these things. But in the current context, you as a leader, you need to step in. But also, when we talk about engaging the people, being able to listen to them, we have a problem now of leaders who do not listen to the people, who believe that they know it all, who are not responsive to the needs of the society which they represent. So I believe that through my leadership, the people will have a hearing, somebody who's able to hear and represent them, because that's one of the cardinal roles of member of parliament: representation. I keep talking about the 4 cardinal roles of member of parliament: legislation, oversight, representation, appropriation, and then there's this other 5th one which I talked about, having to step in where the government is absent. But through these cardinal roles, I believe I'm able to serve the people, to whether it is oversight, making sure that the money that is allocated for public services actually does what it is meant to do. That if KCCA is given a budget to construct roads, actually those roads are being constructed. If there's money to compensate people who are being evicted and all that, that money actually goes to the right people. If there's the problem of garbage, the other day I saw somebody being asked about the dirtiest countries they've been to, and they mentioned Uganda, in particular, the capital city, Kampala. So all these are things which you can respond to through the legislative role, through oversight, through appropriation, ensuring that money goes where the people are. Statistics indicate that Kampala and Wakiso contribute, way up to 70-75% of the taxes that are collected in this country. But if you look at the services that are given to the people, that the money that comes back to the people of Kampala and Wakiso, it's peanuts in terms of services that they get and all that. So I believe that as a legislator, I'm able to use all these roles to try and support the people, support the young people who are struggling with startups and all these things, listening to them, advocating for them, and serving them in every way possible.
Okay, let me just check, Fiona, that Diana has joined us. Diana, are you there? And if you are, you may need to unmute your mic.
Yes,
okay, so Diana, between you and Jacob, you need to turn on your cameras, because my people on TikTok are saying we want to see the people who you are talking to. You may be lying to us that you are talking to these people. So please turn on your camera if it's possible, or at least put what is it called, a photo on your to identify your page. So Diana, I asked a question earlier on, so I'll bring it to you. I don't know if you're able to hear it, but I will ask you the same question, which is, what is it that has driven you at your age, young as you are, to go for public service, to contest for public office, political office, to represent, to be the national, is it female MP or national youth representative? You need to help us understand this office. So go ahead, Diana, explain to us what drives you at a personal level?
Well, while I'm still fighting with my camera,
please don't.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robert. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for joining a bit late. The struggle is real. Well, I won't differ so much from my colleague. One, I happen to be, my name's, by the way, to those that maybe don't know that Diana, I'm Peri Diana Kampe, and by God's grace, I am the flag bearer National Female Youth MP. What I would say has been driving me, or has really driven me out of my comfort zone at my age. One, it's been part of me. Leadership has been part of me right away from Kanyarier Primary, being the head girl, being the head scouts, from there to Masaka, being head of scripture and head girl, joining Hawa, being the head prefect, joining mobs, being on the guild cabinet. Besides the struggle and all of having my background, very humble background, I still tried so hard to really, every environment, every community I entered, I made sure at least I champion 1-2 voices of my fellow young people or of the community that I am in. But still, that put aside, because I am one person who doesn't believe in what I feel, what I am for, what is for me, what I believe in, what my passion is for. Looking around in our generation, you see, it looks like, it might be like a transition. It's the time. So I was like, do I join the team that laments and wishes things were done better and protests here and there? Or it's high time I actually stand in the very government that has raised me and empowered me to be this that I am, and raise and champion very many other voices of my fellow other young people, and actually be the light. I'm also a believer. I happen to be a believer, a very good Christian, that I believe it's high time we take up also the rightful places that really belong to us, because we are the young people, we are the generation, we are Ugandans, then why not? So instead of first watching here and there, you wish things were done better, how about I stop the lamentations and be the responsible one, that all that I would wish to ask very many other people, I let others ask me. What is it that we can do? Is it a national policy that we need to advocate for? What is it that we wish things were done better and they are not done? Let me go there, and I also let other people ask me, why not? So generally, there's no pressure. There's nothing like maybe you're so and so's, maybe you can afford, because I joined with a lot of even fear of, can I actually manage? And to make, fortunately, my biggest worry was, will I ever make it? I mean, I'm not anyone's daughter. They say politics are for this one. These public policies, if you don't, offices, if you don't have anyone, if you don't have a good father, if you don't have a gambano. And it so happened that a peasant's daughter like me, I go through the same primaries without money, like how it looked at everything was monetized. And the young people of my generation choose to believe in a centered agenda that I advocated for, and they voted for me. So that means if I had actually stayed in the comfort zone, I would have chickened out, and maybe I'm like, hey, if you don't have money, you can't afford. But actually, young people's eyes are open as well. So a lot has motivated me, but I thank the Lord that also it has a bit paid off, and it is still paying off, that I didn't take a wrong shot. I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but yeah.
You are. Jacob.
Yes, Ken.
Are you also fighting with your camera?
I'll give you what I have for now, so we'll just work with that.
Okay. But just back to the question. What's your driver? What motivates you? What's your notion of public service? Why political office? Why is it so important to you at a personal level? Why does it have to be you to be putting yourself out there to do this?
Thank you, Ken. I don't know how bad my light is.
How bad is it? It's better than nothing, so we'll go with that.
Okay, it will get better shortly.
We're just wondering which part of the house you are in, but okay.
No, it has caught me on the road, so I've had
okay, go ahead. I was going to say something, but let me leave it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. But now that you've seen my face, I think I should speak without the camera.
Okay, that's all right. There's no problem. Okay, there's Diana. We've seen her now. She's also in the car. So.
All right. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's really, for me, it's a matter of conviction. Coming into the university in Makerere, I met the likes of Lewis Rubongoya. At the time, I was in my first year. I think he was the exiting guild speaker of Makerere at the time. And I immediately knew that we had a lot to deal with in terms of student leadership relation of the university, because I was entering at a time when students were asking for a strike on a policy question, which was whether they should increase the tuition policy in Makerere by 60%. And listening to everyone, I could see that the power centered around this one individual called the president, whom Lewis here and company had decided was not fit for office, and they were sending him out of office. And I wondered why one person would have to bear the brunt of the entire body politic of the university. And for me, that signaled something. And I went on that search. What is valuable in speaking out for young people, for people around you, and how do you influence for better? Because I was on a government scholarship, I didn't need to talk about the 60% policy, but I met actually Lewis here explaining to a couple of students at the time. At the time, I wasn't a member of the NRM, but he was explaining to a couple of students who were arguing that as someone who is in the NRM, he was not fit for, at the time, he was not fit for the arguments he was making, that the policy should not continue and the students should revolt. And so he said something then that I don't think he remembers, that inspired me to actually join politics and stop short of joining the NRM then. Lewis told those students that the responsibility of building your community is yours as the members. As your leader, I am saying, even if I'm on the side that should not be complaining, which should be benefiting, I am a part of the community by being one of the leaders. And he said, so if I don't influence for you, many of you here don't have platform to reach the university council. So I listened to that, took it personal, got involved in small ways, of course, fearful ways in the beginning. But by the time I was hitting my third year at Makerere, I'd already understood that if you want to influence big, you have to get involved in politics. If you want to influence big, you have to either, I think there are only two ways about it. Either you're very rich or you're very involved in politics. If you're very rich, you're able to use money to control narrative, but also to get audience with the people that actually have power. If not, then you have to find some sort of grooming of numbers. Grooming of numbers happens through political organization, whether you're doing it as some form of civil society movement. For me, it is in fact just honing political skills to have people that believe in you and can see direction through your eyes, or can hear, or can speak out through your words. And so for me, that was the push factor. Why did I get pushed or moved to that extent? I felt very strongly that matters of equity needed to be dealt with in our country, especially when I began to visit the places where I came from and compared the parts of the country that I moved around to see that there were certain imbalances that needed people to rise up from where I came from largely, which was Teso sub-region. And so I felt that very strongly, if we don't have people that begin to see far or begin to act strategically in a political manner and mobilize in that line, there might not be very many answers for my people if I don't stand up for them. So that was really pretty much most of it.
Fiona.
Well, I was just thinking, you know how one of the things we are hearing a lot, and rightly so, is that our continent's demography has changed quite a bit. It's primarily youth. We're the youngest continent in the world, and from what I understand, Uganda is ranking quite highly when it comes to our youth population. So let me take the conversation. Let me take this question back in a loop to David. What do you, and I think it's great, first of all, that each of you have experience in youth leadership specifically. So this question, I think, will resonate quite deeply. What, David, do you understand to be the priorities of the youth? Now, I know there's a number of them, but if you had to talk about two in particular, right here, right now, 2025 December, what do you understand to be the priorities of the youth?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm glad to be meeting. First of all, my OG, I didn't know we went to the same school. I hear talk about Canadian Primary School where I went as well. And she's talking about scripture and all that. So it's interesting. And then Jacob Eyeru, who claims that I convinced him to join NRM. I hope I didn't convince him to join NRM, maybe to join politics and leadership and all that. Maybe I was one of the push factors. So I'm glad to have these, fellow young leaders on this platform. I think the priorities for the young people, I would really say, first of all, good governance, and then opportunities. And all these things, if you are to break it down, there are many things that come in it. About governance, young people need a voice. They need to be heard. They need to be on a decision table. Young people for a very long time have been used to just elevate, leaders to some points, and then these leaders kick them aside. They don't listen to them. I mean, just think about Uganda itself. You have a National Youth Council. You don't see anything coming out of that institution or that entity to change policy, to inform the policies that come out of parliament and all these institutions. So that is a strand of governance. I think young people need a voice. They need to be heard. They need their voice out there. They don't need to be on the menu. They need to be on the table. And that's very, very important. Now, aside from the governance bit, young people need opportunities. And you just think about the budgetary allocations of a country like Uganda. I think we should be investing more in young people in terms of, for example, our president yesterday was talking about some of these challenges that the young people meet. If Uganda is ranked one of the most entrepreneurial countries in Africa, and yet over 75% of the businesses which these young people start cannot live up to the first birthday, it means there's a problem. Where is that problem coming from? High taxes, poor policies in terms, even the time that a young person takes to register their business and the challenges they meet along the way is quite significant. You talk about the cost of electricity, which is the cost of doing business. So if, for example, people are paying a lot of money in electricity tariffs, it means that they will not be able to, thrive in business. You have internet access across the country, the challenges that we all know, and of course, internet is expensive in this country. So when I talk about opportunities, it's also very, very broad. So I would say that young people need a voice that speaks to governance and need opportunities. They need a government that does not use them when it comes to an election season. You know, you remember our president saying that the current government think about the next general election and not the next generation, and that's a challenge. That when most of these governments look at these young people, they just see them as stepping stones to be able to win the next election, to be in government in the next term and all that. But for us, our approach would be to give these young people a hand up, not handouts like the current regime does, which many times are politicized. And you see even PDM, for example, you see there's an NRM person on the committee at the parish level. It has been politicized. So we think that young people need to be given a hand up through the laws that are passed in parliament, through the opportunities that come to them, and all in every other sense. So young people need opportunities.
Thank you, Louis. And let me send this question over to Diana as well. And I think what an opportunity actually that we're speaking to you specifically today as we are right in the middle of 16 days of activism. So please do share with us what do you understand or appreciate to be the primary concerns and the priorities when it comes to Ugandan youth?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Fiona. I am glad we have a girl. I want to imagine if I had only Robert. So thank you for showing up. Anyway.
Diana, I am not that bad.
You're not, Robert, you're not. I'm just happy that a girl child was prioritized to be part of the hosts as well.
Yeah,
well, if we are to talk of priority, I would imagine or I would suggest that any day, anytime, young people or youth would be number one priority. It does not even have to be in one line or the other. Every other day, being that indeed we are the real future, we are the biggest percentage of the country, we are the biggest population. I'd imagine that in any other way, any opportunity, any policy, number one to prioritize would be the youth. But well, I would not much differ from my brother, though in another angle, because when we are to talk of opportunities and being included or being heard or being put at the decision-making table, being an NRM cadre, being raised by NRM, I would say I would appreciate this government for the very first time, at least we feel a bit close to the table because we have youth structures. We have youth structures that are not only for NRM, yes, we have Youth League, but we have National Youth Council that involves independence or the opposition or any other that is non-partisan, which actually is constitutional and leaves gap for every youth to be heard. So when we are to talk of being included, we are actually close to the decision making. We have these positions of national female youth and then the regional youth MPs and all. But yes, these all are there and we appreciate. But do we feel like all is well or we are satisfied? That should be the question. That, like I said, coming through, I was like, should I be the one who laments and wishes, yes, opportunities are not here, we are not heard, we are not included? Or actually, it's high time we take up the responsibilities where we are. If you're a youth chairperson, like my colleague Eyeru is the outgoing National Youth Council chairperson, if he's to tell you what they really advocated for and they've come to life or they've come to fruition, we cannot count them all. But as you know, human beings, we might not be satisfied, but some things have been put at the table. But in the same voice as you, why we rise up every other day is to legislate and advocate for more and more. And this is how I come in and be like, the very first priority that should be given to the young people of our generation. Personally, I am a very grounded Ugandan girl that I believe anything that we need to first be sensitized, be oriented, be taught of what we need. Because also as a generation, like my brother Ruiz was saying, you feel like everyone is emotional. Like, hey, we want this, we want to be heard, we want to be. But how about just being intentional with what we have as of now, so that we also focus on a generation and don't just be emotional of like, hey, how do we do this? How do we do that? Because if we are to look into these structures and raise one voice, is it a national policy? And we're like, as young people, we're advocating maybe for increased capitation from the same very schools. I mean, I'm a very product of a UPE school like my brother is. But it will be so sad for me to get out there and make the noise. You see, we need more schools or UPEs are no longer paying well. How about if we join hands using the very structures that we have and we're like, we need increased capitation in our UPE and USC schools. Through that, there will be more gaps or there will be more room for education of the young people. Then when we go, I still believe that anything that we need as a generation, apart from the opportunities, yes, we have very many challenges, we have health issues, but it still starts with mindset. If it's employment, it also starts with mindset. Because you find that, yes, he's still talking about tax, but yet our president just passed a law at everywhere where a young person is starting their small business, 3 years they are exempted from tax. PPDA Act clearly puts it, any contract at a local government that is 30 million and below belongs to the young people. You find that all the market tenders around the local government belong to the young people. But are our young people sensitized? Are they oriented? Are they aware? So to me, I feel like we need awareness first. I always applaud these generals. I don't know how they did it, but there's a way they were always informed. Whatever they used, why don't we use the same? using the structures that we have. We have Nali, we have Chankwan's training center, where we can patriotically train these people, economically train them. We change their mindset. How can they transform their lives and their communities as we wait for whatever we advocate for, as we wait for the increased budget of the young people, as we wait for all that we are advocating for? What are we doing around us? I remember there's a podcast I saw about Robert, and he was telling us a story after leaving New Vision. And now the man is surviving, he's a billionaire even in his coffee. Why can't we do it as young people? So yes, we need to be prioritized first of all with information. I believe that information is actually power. It's so sad that yes, all of us, we shall come out, we want to be at the table, but what are we bringing at the table? Which information do we actually carry to the table? Then of course, if we are to talk of opportunities, like my brother said, the fact is, as young people, yes, these structures are also there. But when it comes to opportunities, there's a way we are not prioritized so well. You find that if you're not connected, even a small local government, to be an accountant or to be a procurement officer from maybe Kole district or maybe Kapchora, you need a Gambanog, you have to give in something small and all, which I do not blame on the government. It's the intentionality of our leaders, even at a small level, of the cows, of the RDCs and all. So it still comes back to how intentional not only our leaders are, but also us as young people. Then through that, maybe if we are to be prioritized for any opportunity, it will be so easy if we are aligned very well with our mindset and how ready are we to take up. Then when you look around our generation, there is a way. I've been fighting this whole thing of experience. You finish university. Personally, I did in waste management on a normal day. But I remember you would go somewhere to supply maybe like a small machine, and they ask for experience.
You don't look like somebody who does waste management.
What do the waste management people look like, Robert? What do they look
I am
like?
quiet.
Exactly.
I had to get back at Diana.
So they would first ask for experience. And I'm like, while I was looking for a job, they wanted experience at least of 3 years. Even here in company, I've opened a small business and they still want experience. So these are the national policies that we feel if they are being set for our country, the young people should be included when they are deciding. Or we have our fellow young people who have just finished school. How about we eliminate that thing? Like our doctors, where we feel like every after school, for them, they are made internees. So those are the small priorities that we feel that we should be included in. But at the end of the day, it is upon us still as a generation, because tomorrow it will be me, a national female, it will be a Eyeru youth minister, it will be a Louis as a commissioner for youth or what, and they'll be asking us the same questions and we can't answer. So it still comes back to how intentional we are as a generation. But if we are to say of the priorities, if I were you prioritize young people any day, anytime. Sorry, someone had called. I would prioritize young people anytime, any day. Just like a family. I don't know how you wake up one day, Robert, and relocate to maybe Canada. But when your children actually are still enjoying Uganda, you have to first consult your children. So it's how I feel like we should be prioritized any day, anytime. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Diana. So let me go over to Jacob, and I know probably, Jacob, you might have something to say. I know Louis noted something about the National Youth Council, and I imagine you'd have something to say about that and about how, I think you were specifically talking to how it has or hasn't, been truly meaningful, perhaps in serving the youth. But the question, though, is much broader than that. It's about what you see, what you understand to be the priorities of young people in Uganda as we are today, and of course through the lens of being the former NYC chairperson. Let me just double check. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Kemi. First of all, I think it is very dangerous to take swipes on these conversations when we are saying you inspired us to join politics. So it's my good brother David should know better that I would not be one of those who would underperform. But like Diana said, I think for me, first of all, we asked ourselves whether there was, in fact, a policy problem in Uganda for young people. And yes, to some extent, there was a good policy problem. Problem can be good, but there's an agreeably great problem with the policy framework. And we went on a hunt for policy changes. Some of the things that, in fact, all the things that David has spoken about here, we had policy solutions for them that were achieved within the 5-year time frame. Give an example of the situation with taxing. When we came in, we started by saying the taxing environment is just too high. It's contributing to the high morbidity of the high death rate of all these youth businesses. We are unable to have a young person's business go beyond 1 year because a young person has about 1 to 3 million if they have very good capital. That led to a policy situation where at the end of our 5-year tenure, by the end, we have a 3-year tax holiday for young people starting businesses. And that starts from the time when you're starting your business, 3 years up front. We had argued for 2 years, government saw the logic and gave for 3 years. That is a policy change that came because the National Youth Council acted. When you talk about the availability of the government contracts that are now under the reservation scheme, there was always a reservation clause in the PPDA Act since its inception, but it was never implemented. It is when we came in that we worked together with the youth members of parliament that we pushed for policy position to have guidelines that actually affect this. Now, because of that policy push, you have that situation. The PDM that you're speaking about, the policy push of young people is why there are quotas in PDM to have 30% for young people, 30% for women, but that wasn't really there. But from my experience, and I'm going to say this very painfully, the policy environment in the country does not, in fact, even if fully solved, does not, in fact, solve the problems of the young people. Why? Because the priority of the young person in Uganda is to make quick money, and that quick money needs to be made at the expense of any other attributes of nation growth. Now, in that sense, policy on paper alone does not make it to the finishing line. Why? Because you have so many young people that are clicking the 18 time frame and becoming adults every year in higher number than you have any policy recommendation or solution for. So the solutions we need for young Ugandans are solutions that fit into the multiplier effect of the numbers of young people that enter the job market. That is the reality of the problem. It's not a policy problem. It is, in fact, a strategy problem. What are you doing on ground as government? Not what have you written on paper, not what are you saying in the halls, but what are you doing on ground that can have a multiplier effect that's so large. One of the things that we argued for government was to say, look, you have all these funds and they are good, but even if you had a fund of 1 trillion shillings per year going only to young people, it will not be enough for the rate at which young people need jobs in this economy. So you need to have a multiplier effect where there are more people who can create jobs, taking up 5, 10 young people each year coming up, than you are giving money to young people who know nothing about business, going in every direction of, trying to go entrepreneur because you failed to find a job. And so you go to entrepreneurship as a mode of surviving, not in fact as a strategy for livelihood that you understand. And I'm sure that Ken here would speak better to that because he understands going through, I've seen all his struggles going through the farming cycle. I'm just coming from a farm right now. There is so much that goes on in a cycle of entrepreneurship that young people are not anywhere near knowledgeable about. But just because you don't have a job, it becomes an alternative. And when you go to entrepreneurship as an alternative, not as something that you're strategically understood and undertaken, you're not solving anything. So what do we need to solve? Number one, I think we need to move away from the education for accolades. In other words, graduating people into skilling people. We need to get to a point where whether someone is dropping out at any level, if we say you've spent 10 years in school in Uganda, then we are saying you've spent 10 years of being skilled in school. What can you do at the end of 10 years? It's more important than what qualification do you have on paper. Because if we don't do that, you're not solving anything when your dropout rate by the time you reach senior 6, even when you have UPE and USE, is about 80% of the number. You don't solve anything if when someone drops out at senior 3, they are as good as someone who dropped out at P4, as long as in P4 they were speaking perfect English. That is the problem we have in Uganda. And that should be the priority of the young person. Can you do something more than you can speak for many or anything? That's number one, and I think that's where we need to put in the effort. Number two, I think as a government, as a people, as a country, we need to understand a consensus on where we are in terms of our demographics. And for me, that should be the aim. What you're doing, how does it feed into the structural age group of your population? If government is investing in something that it calls too big, how does that fit into the age group below 35, below 35 that is getting out of school? And for me, I have to say 15 to 35, because the real dropout problem starts at 15 and goes all the way up to the effects we see at 30 and 35. What are you doing for that age group? If you're saying that each of those people is going to become a border rider, then make the border business a model organized industry that can actually propel growth for our country. Because if you're saying that a border guy is the reality of any young person's hope after school in Uganda, then that means that the majority or the multiplier effect of your country is in that sector. How do you work with that sector to produce the economy that you want? If it cannot produce the economy that you want, and you know it, then it is wise to kill that sector down so that you invest and redirect the energies of young people into sectors that they begin to see their energies deserve and can build their hopes. Otherwise, anywhere where people flock for opportunity is going to be the end product of that economic outlook. And whether we invest there or not will be a question of, in fact, whether numbers pull us. Eventually, the numbers will pull you there. And I think in the beginning, we didn't think the border field was something that was a problem or something needed to be looked at. Everyone just said, it's okay, let them do what they want, until young people began selling land to own a border. And that's when government began saying, I think there's a problem emerging. But by the time we talk about a problem emerging, it is chronic in terms of why are young people rushing to own a border? Because it gives them a daily income that they can see and touch. So if you know that young people are about that, how do you navigate this economy into an economy that answers the need of, one, a daily income for young people, and two, a sustainably planned economic sector where young people are falling in large numbers. So they are not going into underemployment, they are going into meaningful employment, even if it's a border. Change that, work on that, and you'll have worked on a working economy for young people. Skill them, and then find where they land with those skills. Thank you.
Okay, that was a very detailed and thoughtful response. Thank you, Jacob. Over to you, Robert. Robert, are you there? I think you're muted.
Oh, yes, I was. Okay. I was saying that listening to these guys is, for me, quite reassuring, because all the three of them have such a good understanding. Number two, they're quite articulate about what they understand and how they see the problem needs to be solved. And clearly they have the experience from youth leadership. So I guess my next question, and Diana, you'd be the first to help us understand this, is how can this country generally, forget just the single political institutions, how can we work towards restoring belief by the young people in the political systems, in the political processes, actually, not even political systems, in the political processes, and show them, one, that it's worth participating in these political processes, and that yes, these political processes, even as frustrating as they are, can be relied upon to deliver results. So that's the first part of my question. But I just want to add one more, which I hadn't prepared for. Clearly, you guys are from the same political experience, the same political period. What would you do if suddenly you're the only ones left in the political field and all of us senior guys are now gone and we're in the departure lounge? Anytime the plane takes off, there's now no more discussion. Biology is about to deal with a lot of. Suddenly, you will be the guys on the front line. You will not just be advocating. You will be making decisions. How will you react? What will you do? So please, my question is in two parts. Diana, over to you. Number one, how do we get young people to restore their belief and participation in the political process beyond money, beyond all of this, so that they can feel that it is important to be in the political process in a specific manner? And then if you found yourself suddenly, you're the ones who are there now, what is your program? Diana, your mic is muted in case you're on talking, so that's important for you to note.
Oh, sorry. The things of Zoom, we last used them in COVID. Anyway, well, I think it to bring these young people again to believe in politics again, in leadership. One, first of all, like I talked about those trainings, because young people are indeed young people. It's like a child. If you don't tell them that there is fire there, if you touch, you'll be burnt, they will immediately first be burnt. So I think the first thing would be, indeed, like we have all these structures around us, it would be better we first train them as they come through. The very first thing, I remember the very first time I heard about the National Youth Council, I was really excited and I immediately knew those would be the nursery beds. Like anyone coming out of National Youth Council, they would be burning, they would be anything. Very great. But to my surprise, actually, after the elections and all, you see that they don't really focus on the structure. They don't focus on them to empower them politically. One will fight their way, swim there, get some training here and there. So to me, if they could focus on these young people that have already showed up to really find their passion being leadership and empower them with information, with knowledge, with their own country, with that patriotic heart, because it still starts with one loving their country. I keep telling my fellow young people that there's no way you love your own country and a fellow young girl comes like me and you ask for 2 million or 3 million and expect me to come back. So it starts with one loving their own country, which can also be trained, which can also be, sensitized upon them. Then the leadership or our government should start being transparent, because I've come to realize that one of the things that actually biases young people is not being transparent. Even when things are failing, like everywhere I've been, people are like, hey, you people go and never come back, and all those were the complaints. And me, I'm like, maybe even if things don't go well, come back and be transparent. Leadership to me is like salvation. After identifying your identity in Christ, you don't suffer so much. So me going to parliament and I advocate for something and maybe it doesn't work out in 3 years, 4 years, I still don't see why I don't have to go back to the fellow young people and tell them, guess what? This is what I advocated for, but it's not working for. I advocated for our own ministry, but they promised to come for maybe for the next national development plan. I advocated for increased budget, but here it is. To me, it will build that attachment and they'll feel like, yeah, they are part of the process. There is accountability somewhere. And this is the same issue that is on ground, that you find just a youth leader at a district level doesn't even know what is happening in this 30% PDM, what belongs to the fellow youth, they are not even involved. So when everything is transparent, when everything is accounted for, it will make these young people again to believe in leadership, to believe that things are actually fail. It's okay. Because you also know our generation, or as young people, we believe that everything has to be done. Now the robots have seen it all. They know there are some ups and downs. But to us, we believe everything has to work out. We have that unfiltered energy, that is so real. So to me, if we could show the young people the process, make them be part of the decision making, that they see, yes, as a local government, we advocated for this, but this is the budget. As a local council, we're giving actually only per quarter, we're giving only 1 billion. And this is what we have to do. They will feel satisfied and they will still believe that if this term my leaders managed to do this, let me push again and now become the LC5 since I was just the chairperson because they pushed for this. Now let me go push for this because they were part of the process. Or make them be part of that accounting. I mean, like at a normal local district government, I don't always rush up here because I believe it starts from down there. If I am part of the of procuring a tractor at a district level and I see how much it takes, if you just put me and employ me minus me bribing, minus me paying 20 million to just be that accountant in Kwene district, then I will come with that innocent heart and I will work with my all. Where things are failing, it will be understandable. But if I pay 20 million to be that, that cow, or to be that assistant RDC, or to be anything, I will come running to regain my money. So to me, things should be transparent. Things should be genuine. Things should be intentional. Just like that, we will regain these young people to believe in leadership again, to believe in power again. Even when things are not going their way, let them see the process that, yes, it's okay for things not to go their way. I believe that's the only way we can eliminate that. Minus that, and we are still sugarcoating some things because we are hiding young people from knowing the truth. You will just hear people say, you guys have not seen. I remember there's some gentleman I was talking to who is a Sekmi man, like, we need our own ministry. How do we be the biggest population? And we have ministries of cars and what, who have no breath here and there. And we have young people and we don't have our own ministry. How are we going to advocate for any increased vote through Ministry of Finance when we are still advocate under Ministry of Gender? And they're like, but every other day you people are outgrowing youth, you're going into something else. And I'm like, every other day we also have other children. Make us be part of the process. Let us own it. Then you see how we fail at it. Maybe young people will feel like they are also hard. But leaving that aside, one, I believe if it so happened, indeed, which can never happen because that's friction, we still have very many. We have you, the robots. If people take off, the use will stay and we shall still learn from them. But still, if it so happened, I believe everything has a foundation. And as young people, we are Ugandans. First of all, we've not just come in here that we are foreigners. I personally come from one of the settlement areas that I understand what it means to come from a very humble background. I've seen things transform. I've seen how to transform a national park into paddocking, into 4-acre model, into now generating 5 liter, just one cow to get 5 liters, and now transforming to coffee, now gaining more money, like a lot and a lot. I know what it means having been that was from who comes from a background of by 11 years, it's okay for you to get married, and I've seen what it means to be empowered as a girl child. So there's that enough foundation for me that I have where to start from. Well, no matter how much we run away from the parties and all, having been raised by this very government of NRM, I feel like we've been empowered enough. We can take on, I don't know, Robert, are you there?
Yeah,
Someone. Oh, sorry. So I feel like we've been really empowered enough that even if very many people, God forbid, took off as young people, and I believe in unity, a lot of things can be done. And as a generation, we are really united. We are trying. And as Uganda, no matter how many tribes we are, there is a way by God's grace, God has still given us to be our God and for our country, and we are still united, no matter the difference in languages, in beliefs and culture. And where there is unity, I believe we can always drive something fruitful, something generational, and something powerful. And as long as we have this peace that has been attained, when you look into defense, or when you look into army, we have young people. When you look into Diplomacy, we have young people. When you look into policymakers, we have. When you look into teachers, we have young people. When you look into the doctors, so all sectors in this country, we have young people that you cannot say that, God forbid, if something happened and all the old people have left us, you know, we are not orphans. We have been empowered by this government that we really, really don't take for granted. So, Robert, don't worry about us. We can never die. We can never suffer.
Okay.
We've been really empowered. Yeah.
So David, I come to you, but in your case, there is a very specific element that I would also like to raise. Yes, how do we restore confidence? But in your case, there are those who feel that you guys in NUP have not been effective in terms of bringing about the change, and therefore there's no point in participating in a process that you guys can't do anything about. So I just wanted you to address, on top of generally the question that I asked, is that element as well that I would like you to touch on. How do you, in the circumstances in which you are, where people might be losing faith, how do you get them to continue their belief that this enterprise, this undertaking is worth their time?
Yeah, first of all, I'm glad to hear these colleagues, although they belong to the NRM, point out some of the challenges. And in fact, when you listen to them speak, unfortunately, they, talk about the challenge. They also seem to understand where the challenge is coming from. But then at the same time, they say they belong to the cause of the challenge and somewhat defend the challenge. So it's most unfortunate because from where I sit, like I said, the problems of this country begin and end on the door of governance, bad priorities, the current government not really investing where it should invest in young people in its population, but rather in power and all that, and that is reflected through the budgets. And if you look at the money that goes into classified expenditure, the money we lose through corruption and all this should be going into helping the young people to thrive in this country. We've just been talking, you've just been talking about political participation. And you remember when I was talking about the challenges of the young people, I talked about governance and then opportunities. And on the element of governance, just look at how many people are brutalized today. Just as our presidential candidate was in Shira, you will see the gruesome videos. People were just trying to come out to express themselves. While that was happening in Shira, elsewhere in Barara, they were marching on the streets, having processions. Nobody touched them. They were under the protection of the police and the military. But on this hand of NUP, they are being beaten, they are being battered, they are being tear gassed, they are being illegally arrested. Before we started today's activities, I went to Chitaria prison to check on our people who have been there for 5 years. 5 years in detention without trial. They've been taken to military courts, not tried. Eventually, the Supreme Court says transfer these cases to the ordinary courts. The regime simply refuses. And now these guys were telling me, regime agents go there every day to tell them, you guys need to accept that you committed crimes if you ever want to be freed. So that is the kind of country we're in. And these are young people that we're talking about. These are, so if someone starts talking about, their opportunities in governance and all that, the person is not really responding to the situation of Uganda. Maybe these colleagues are describing a different country than the one we live in. The young people who are watching us, who are following us, cannot, believe somebody saying that there are all these opportunities for young people in leadership and all that. I mean, I talked initially about the problems with the National Youth Council, the monetization of politics in Uganda. You saw that even with the recent nominations, how many young people cannot afford to pay 3 million shillings to be nominated, to be able to run for office and all that. So all these are challenges, all these are obstacles to young people participating in decision making, being able to feel that they are on the table and not on the menu. Now, in terms of what needs to be done, I mean, you guys have seen what we've been trying to do as NUP. That's why we're there, trying to rally the young people of this country to know that it is possible. The old guard or those in power today are fighting tooth and nail to stay in power because they want to be able to continue looting. They want to be able to continue controlling our resources and doing all sorts of things. On the other hand, we're trying to rally the young people of Uganda to say enough is enough, to rise up and reclaim their country, because we feel from where we stand that they are not fully in charge of this country, in charge of its resources, in charge of its opportunities, which are there. We've been talking about the problem of nepotism, and I'm glad Diana was talking about it. The Gamba Nogu syndrome, that for you to get opportunities, whether job opportunities in the private sector, in the public sector, and all that, I mean, numerous reports have indicated the levels of nepotism, sectarianism that are involved in this. Even at the district service commission level, getting jobs at the district level, the nepotism, the corruption, So all these things can be addressed through governance, and that's why we're saying that the current system is tired. It has failed to respond to these issues, and that's why we are calling for change. That's why we are rallying the nation for change. These colleagues will know that I, as a person, at some point, maybe I believed like them that maybe we could change the system from within. But I realized that it cannot be possible where the priority of those in power is not the common person, is not this young person we're talking about this evening, but staying in power is the cardinal, priority. And they will do everything possible, whether it means arresting young people, abducting them, killing them on the streets, investing the money that should be going there to buying guns and tear gas and all these things. So once you realize that actually those who rule over us, their priority is really staying in power and not responding to the needs of these people, which is why I've told you that even programs that should be for everybody, like PDM, they end up being politicized. Emioga, they end up being politicized. These are people, this is money that should be, and if you want to understand it even from a common perspective, just see what was happening in Barara with police trucks carrying NRM supporters, this, to a rally venue. And on the other hand of NUP, the police trucks are coming to beat, tear gas, under this this current system. So that's why our diagnosis of the problem is that the young people are not empowered, and that if we want to change the status quo, we need to bring about change in leadership, in governance, and that has been our core message to the young people, to rally them into action.
Okay, Jacob, you've been at the National Youth Council. What are the institutions that are there and how can those be used to show young people that, yes, participation in political or public office is worth their time? How do we deal with cynicism and despondence?
Sorry, can you please ask that again?
Sorry?
Please ask that again.
Oh, I was saying that from your own experience at the National Youth Council, what can be done to restore confidence? From what you know, what are the institutions, for instance, what are the areas of participation that can then be used or given to young people to restore confidence and belief in the political process and avoid the cynicism and the despondence that seems to be quite widespread amongst young people about whether the politics can deliver the outcomes of their aspirations and expectations?
Thank you. I hope I have better lighting now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think for me, when I look at all that's happening in our country, to restore belief in political systems, it really starts with inspiring it. It's not so much to do with waiting to see what happens, but it's in some sense taking up the mantle to say, let's do something about it. And this is where, as a young person, I want to thank every young person that goes out of their way to go into this game called politics and say, what can I do for our people? How do I stand up to this rhetoric? And as just discussing this with someone yesterday, and I was asking, why do we have a National Youth Council in Uganda? And whenever we talk about politics for young people, we prop them towards the National Youth Council. But the requirement for entering the National Youth Council is the same age as the requirement for entering parliament. It's the same age as the requirement now for running for president. If we did away with the National Youth Council, would the young people that are groomed in politics or that become political in their universities, would they not participate in something, or would they not take it up? And if you look at the systems of countries where many times we like to sing praises for their democratic practice, you'll notice that you can't speak a lot about the youth structures or their engagement, but you can speak a lot about the democracy there. I think there needs to be conviction and inspiration coming out of young people to take on these positions. I mean, I would be more than happy to see a young person say, look, I've been in parliament, this is my second term, my first term was as a youth member of parliament, I am now a constituency member of parliament, I would like to be the deputy speaker. And then have that conversation. The problem we have is that young people demanding space are coming in with demands that are not driven out of competence. And so you are easily shaken off by people just saying, but that one can't even think about this. That one can't even. That speaks to the lack of preparation that we have as young people for the space we want to take up. So we are demand driven out of the push of a generation, the frustration. And many people say, Jacob, you need to speak about this. You need to go here, go there. But when Jacob arrives on the table, what is Jacob saying? How competent is Jacob? That speaks to whether Jacob will command more respect for space, or he will just be dismissed as the young people who are never ready for things. But number two, which I think is also very important, the question is, how do you frame a political system where the leadership has been the same for about 40 years to now respond to young people? My answer has been, it just won't work that way. You can't find people in their late 70s who have been active since their early 30s framing a political system that works in the favor of young people. So my solution is that you just need to find space that is available for young people to become vibrant. And that is where my argument has been, that if you are young people that have competence, that have elected to have participation and ensure that this political system still inspires hope, you need, as young people, to organize with your generation to insist on some direction that gives that competence a test, that gives that direction a foundation. If you don't do that, you're going to end up in the game that has been prepared for you. The table that has been laid for you cannot be one that you control. If you find the table has already been set and people are serving food, you cannot determine who will eat what. You will only be the one of the people that knows where to be served from and so on. So for me, that is it. The final thing I'll say about this, Ken, is that I also do not think that young people need to necessarily reset, as David and Co like to put it, because there are some real positives that we can ride on, and those real positives should not be lost in the conversation of the lack of young people taking up space or being given platform enough for us to clap our hands and say young people are in charge. One, I think power is not a question that is answered biologically in any country. I think it's answered on the needs of everyday persons, of classes, and it's answered on the needs of what the population feels is the need now. So a person will vote on the basis that taxes are defeating their business ideas. A person will vote on the basis that they do not find medicine in hospitals, much more than whether the person that is going to solve that is young or old. And so for that reason, we need to engineer a political system as young people that we participate in for the merits of politics, not for the merits of biology, and say we mobilize around being young. Yes, we can use that for how long we shall run in this mobilization. But in 10 years, all of us will run out of this young brand. And this is what you see, whether it's Bobby Wine or it's Muhozi or it's Eyeru. In 10 years, you are almost out of this young bracket, and there are new people who can argue for the young nature of self. So that is, for me, not a strand to build on. Build on the strands that engineer the politics, to answer the pressing questions of the people, and maintain that. Be consistent about speaking about that, and insist that you must find space, because nobody is going to grant power or grant platform to young people to be able to push this. You need to push your generation as a group and say we can be alternatives because we are merited for that alternative. Thank you.
Fiona, over to you for your favorite question, and then we can go to bed.
Indeed, indeed. So for our last segment, we like to have a little section where we have you ask each other questions. So I'll just direct us. So the first set will be, I'll ask David, if you, and picture this, you and Diana are running for the same office. Let's say actually for the office you're running for now, Kampala Central. If you were both running for the same office, what question would you ask Diana? And then Diana will have the opportunity to answer it. David? Just make sure we've not lost you.
His mic is off.
Okay, David, your mic is off.
I can hear you, but my network is breaking, unfortunately.
You can drop the video. It's okay. Your audio is good.
Okay.
Yes. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
All right. So in this last segment, we usually have each of you ask each other questions. So the scenario or the picture I'm painting here is that you are running for the same office as Diana. Let's say the office you're running for, which is Kampala Central. So if you are running in this scenario where you are running for the same office, what question would you ask Diana, and she'll have an opportunity to answer it?
Well, I think I would perhaps ask why she chooses to identify with a system that, with all the ideas I had her talk about here, seemingly impassioned about young people and all that, why does she continue to support a system that tortures young people, imprisons them without trial, really treats them like criminals in their own land for expressing their opinion? That would be my question to her.
Okay, over to you, Diana.
Okay, you just want me to fight my hobby. I can see.
For today, no.
Well, it's so funny that I
Sorry, Diana, we've lost you, I think.
you're sorry?
You're back.
Okay, we had lost you.
Yeah, I am in a struggle. People keep calling me.
You're in
So
the field. You're on the ground,
yes.
as you people say.
Yeah, so I
Ground.
don't just identify myself with a system. I am one person who sees all these system, political parties as just vessels. At the end of the day, what hurts a Ugandan really hurts a Ugandan. So I don't just identify myself with a system, but also it's what I know. Like, as a child, I've been raised by my mother. She was not the perfect one, maybe, but I never asked for another mother. Sorry. Even when there were very many rich mothers around, I still stayed with my mother. So, sorry, this is the time for these guys to call. So I'm really sorry. So,
No,
David,
you do it very quickly. We're about to finish. Please tell them we're finishing now.
David, I don't just identify myself with a system. And I boldly say this. There is a reason a criminal will always be a criminal. I keep telling young people that you don't have to, be emotional. We just have to be intentional. If you're not happy with something, come out, raise your point. There is a reason why, David, you're not the one behind those bars, but there are many other young people. Probably it's them that were stoning, probably it's them that were doing this and that. So if you're a criminal, you're a criminal. And in all the prisons that we have in this country, we do not only have people who are opposing, we have also people who are in the system and they've done wrong. So if you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong. It does not matter which party you subscribe to, which, it's not just about sentiments here and there. No. I do not. That's why in my points, I was airing out things that, yes, we are okay with that, those, but there are also those that we would wish they are done better. So I don't just subscribe to this, or I am not, affiliating myself to it. No, it's actually the reality, like how they brought us here. The reality of this show, the reality is, why do you have to do it that way? Why do you have to protest? How about if we protect what we have and are still boldly advocate for what we need more? Do we have to be emotional and fight here and there? Or we can actually boldly stand and we are still hard? I don't know if that satisfies you.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Let me go to the next set. Jacob, same scenario. Picture you are running for the same office as David. And let's say the office is still the office that he's running for at the moment, which is Kampala Central. What would you ask him? Jacob, are you there?
David, my question would be very simple, and I've wanted to ask this question for some time. When you approach politics as us versus them nature, so that you vilify not just the leaders on one side, but even anyone who does support them, how do you build the country together after that, when you have decided that it is not just the individual, but anybody who seems to have affiliation or seems to show support, whether they be peasantry or they are normal people, they must be vilified along with the villain. How do you build the country together after that? Thank you, David.
David, please go ahead.
So, as you know, Mandela told us that a freedom fighter learns the hard way that it is the oppressor who defines the nature of the struggle, and the oppressed is often left with no option. The question should be, how did we come to this point? Who has introduced politics of intolerance, of, closing up the political space and all that? Sometimes I wonder when these people try to victimize the victims, try to project themselves as, people are reconciliatory, people are willing to, speak to each other and all that. For us as NUP, for example, we've been very clear that we want to unite this country. Nobody wants a divided country. We've seen very many examples of countries that used to be very strong, and because of, bad leaders, eventually people rose up. And now if you look at the situation in those countries, it's not admirable. So all of us are aware of these situations. And I think General Museveni mentioned this when he was a young person, like all of us here. He said that, it was his quotation or his assertion that Obote had left them with no option but to fight, because he had closed all other avenues of peaceful transfer of power. So it is the same context we have in Uganda now. If political parties are not able to operate freely, if someone expressing their opinion on TikTok can cause them to be jailed, and another person, because they belong to NRM, is insulting other people, is abusing other people, or even saying worse things, and that person is protected, you are bringing about hatred, you're bringing about these divisions, you're bringing about this situation describing of us versus them. Previously it was unheard of, in Africa especially, to hear people celebrating when someone dies. But these days, you see young people celebrate or even wish other people to die, because these people have oppressed them so much, have made them feel so powerless. I've just been giving you an example of what happened today. Our president is moving just from his home to go to a campaign venue. All these people are following him, and these guys come with tear gas, with pepper spray, with whatever. It is turned into a war situation. On the other hand, you have NRM supporters marching through the streets of Mbarara under the protection of the state, the military, and everyone. So how do you expect these people to respond? So I think before we talk about how do you solve this problem, you need to first of all understand, how did it come about? And we are 100% open to, bring about healing and reconciliation to this country. If you look at our manifesto, we talk about a truth-telling commission. We are saying that once we have, an opportunity to go past this phase, we must have national healing, reconciliation, and bring our country together, because that is the only way we can achieve sustainable development sustainable peace and security and all these dreams that we have for the development of our country.
All right, thank you, David. And our last set will come from Diana. Please ask Jacob a question. Assume you're running for, all right, so let's say it's National Youth MP without the female part, so that it can make sense. But if you are running for the same office, what question would you want to ask Jacob?
Let's say they were competing, both of them were competing for youth sec. That is.
Sorry, was that question to me?
Yes, actually.
Sorry,
yes,
I didn't hear. Okay. Sorry, someone was.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Robert has even added some spices into the question. The question is, so actually the question will come from you. What would you, if you and Jacob were running for National Youth Sec against, alongside each other, against each other, what would you ask him?
That's a very terrible one because that's my mentor. So I don't know how I start because I believe in his ideology, but him being my senior, I think sometimes, like he said, sometimes it's not just who is the best, what are you doing for this? Sometimes it's allying and maybe uniting. So I would maybe ask him, what is it that he thinks would bring to the table better than me for the young people? Having been in NYC, what does he feel like he didn't achieve and would love us to achieve together, or maybe he would want to re-achieve as a Youth League SEC member?
That's a very good question.
Okay. Yeah. Over to you, Jacob.
I'll start with the classic answer of one of the people who are giving an excuse for why they stayed too long. I said 5 years is a very small time to achieve anything in a whole country. And so maybe we'll start it like that. I would say, well, in 5 years, you can start the basics, but you may not go far. But to answer more seriously, I think, Dana, there is a lot of work that requires a foundational knowledge. And for me, I've seen why it is important for continuity to exist in efforts led by young people. Most of the policy processes in our country, if you're talking about parliament, I'll just give you an example. We try to push a startup bill with Honorable Court. That startup bill was pushed. We spoke about it in, I think, a moderated panel by Kemigisha sometime in Arusha. We pushed it so far, but to this day, it has not seen the light of day. Not because it was not given priority. It is just because it had competing priorities that did not allow it to see the light of day. So, but by the time we got to know how to go around getting on the order paper right, how to go around getting all these things right, we were in probably the third year of tenure, and then politics was coming up again. So there needs to be some sort of continuity for things to actually shift. And if we don't have that continuity guaranteed on the technical wing, then we need to find a way in which continuity can happen on the political. So I would not be the person that would run against you. No, I have a golden rule. I don't run against people I believe in. We find a balance, or we find it out.
Well, you don't qualify to be national female youth MP. So thankfully,
I saw you coming. I saw you coming, guys. I'm glad we both.
But guys, thank you very much for agreeing to join this conversation. We're very grateful for you guys setting aside the time. We are also trying to reach the same people who vote for you, the same people you speak to, whose own media consumption is on these platforms more than anything else. So we'd promised them that we would bring to them their leaders unfiltered. And you guys today have done us a lot of justice. So thank you, Diana. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you very much, Jacob. And one day I look forward to all of you being in charge of the affairs of this country.
It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. A great pleasure being on the call.
Thank
the
you.
Zoom.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
You guys, good luck in your politics, huh?
Thank you,
Thank you
Robert.
very
Thank
much.
you,
Yeah.
Fiona.
You're
All right,
welcome.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. God bless.